Disclaimer: I am not a doctor, scientist, or DNA expert. For the purpose of this video, I have done some research, and my findings are what I will be sharing with you here. Dearest Aunt Ernestine, welcome to your DNA discovery. I hope you find this journey as magnificent and wonderful as I found it in the preparation of it. So many things to learn, so many sights to see, so many pieces of you that you probably didn't know that you had, and a lot of pieces of you confirmed that you knew you had, but didn't quite know how you had them. So this journey will be an opportunity for you to sit back, relax, and soak in the magic that is you. DNA contains all the information needed to build your body. DNA determines things like your eye color, hair color, height, and even the size and shape of your nose. The DNA in your cells is responsible for physical attributes as well as many others. It turns out that the DNA in your body came almost directly from your mother and father. If your DNA came from your parents and DNA determines your appearance, you might say, well, why don't I look exactly like my mother or my father? The reason is that your DNA is a mixture of your mother and father's DNA. This is why some of your physical features may resemble your mother's, while some of your physical features may resemble your father's. The same goes for traits. Some of your features may look nothing like your mother or your father. You may look more like a distant relative that you don't even know. DNA is passed down from parent to child over and over again. Human DNA comes in 23 pairs of packages called chromosomes, hence the name 23andMe. These chromosomes are large bundles of tightly packed DNA. Your mother and father each donate chromosomes, which pair up to give you your full set of 23 chromosomes. Within these 23 pairs of chromosomes, there are certain sections that determine different physical features. These sections of DNA that contain information that determine your physical features are called genes. Since you have 2 pairs of chromosomes, you also have 2 pairs of genes. No, not like designer fashion genes, although you could call them designer genes, because that's exactly what they do. These genes design or determine your physical features or traits. The genes that you have in your body right now make up your genotype. This genotype then determines your physical appearance and your traits, which is called your phenotype. Genes can be dominant or recessive. In other words, they're at home but the lights are turned off, or on, whichever the case may be. But this is not a science documentary, and I, as I said in the disclaimer, am not a scientist or a DNA expert. I just want to kind of give you the basics so it's easier to understand, thereby appreciate the wonderful package that is uniquely you. For the purpose of this video, I want you to forget about your race, creed, and color. Forget about your sex, your ancestry, and your particular biases and predilections. Forget about your politics. Now you might say, well, isn't that the whole purpose of DNA, to tell me that stuff? Well, yes, it is. But DNA is molecular. It's in every cell in your body and in every part of your being, with the exception of red blood cells. I want you to try and experience the imagery, the sights, sounds on a purely molecular level, if that's possible. I ask this of you because that's what DNA is. It's cellular, it's molecular, it's atomic. It's so ingrained in every cell in your body that you will instinctively react to the imagery of your molecular origins. This is an opportunity, without prejudice, to honor every part of your being, if only for the duration of this video. Before I take you on your journey, I just want to explain a couple of things about your DNA results from the various companies, 23andMe and Ancestry.com. Your DNA fluctuates or changes over time, according to the reports. That does not mean that your physical DNA is changing. Both companies, or rather all companies who sample DNA, work with samples of people all over the world. Each has its own sample base of customers or people that they sample. When your DNA is sampled in one place and then in a different place by a different company, they may find more people in their sample base that tie to your DNA. That does not mean, when you see your percentages change, that does not mean that your DNA is changing and all of a sudden you're more this than that or more one thing than the other. It simply means that the number of people being tested around the world is increasing. As that number of tests increase, your DNA is compared to a wider swath of people, therefore changing your percentages. So often you will see percentages change in one ethnicity or the other. That does not mean you have actually changed. It simply means that the various companies who do these testings are broadening their testing base. In some places in the country, DNA is not tested at all or tested very slightly. As that grows, you may see that you are tied to other parts of regions that don't show up at this point. This presentation will be organized in order of your highest percentage markers to your lowest percentages. So what I will be doing is showing you imagery of places and people that are tied to you through your DNA in order of the percentages of those places. So of course, we're going to start in Africa and we're going to expand out. Now, because you have a higher percentage, that does not make the other areas of lower percentage invalid. It simply means more of. The composite of you is 100%, and the composite of you includes all of the things that you will see here today. What I don't want you to do is give more weight to one or the other, because it's all of them that make you who you are. According to Ancestry.com, you are currently related to roughly 20,845 people around the world today. That's at the last time that I looked while preparing this presentation for you. But that's just the people who happen to be members of Ancestry.com and have submitted their DNA online. Consider the number of people who are not Ancestry.com members, as well as the 23andMe members who are not counted in that number. When looking through your chart of the communities that are tied to you by DNA, that number could easily exceed 1 million. That's 1 million living relatives around the world today in communities on many different continents that are tied to you through DNA. This section of the presentation shows your relative matches according to Ancestry.com. I'm not going to linger here because you'll be receiving all of this information in PDF files that you can look at your leisure. However, I wanted to show you how they do a breakdown of your relatives that are tied to you through DNA in their system. Again, these only represent other relatives tied to you through DNA who have submitted their samples to Ancestry.com so that Ancestry.com could plug them into their system and show them to you like this, where all the different states and places and countries where they live, which is actually quite interesting and very intriguing. 23andMe does this also, which you will see in just a little bit. But this section just shows you all of the different relatives that you have all over the world, some by name, some by initials, some don't show faces, as people are wont to do on social media and the internet. But here you go. These are all of the relatives that are tied to you through DNA. Phenomenal. It's just amazing. When I was doing the family book, I ran into a lot of these names and couldn't quite place them exactly because I didn't want to do the kind of research for the family book where I just threw anything in that I thought was right. But DNA doesn't lie, and a lot of these names that showed up in my research that I wasn't certain about because I didn't know the length or the tie, the family tie. Here they are. Amazing. I'm going to stray off the farm for just a couple of minutes and segue onto the family tree book that I did. Because this is, I think, phenomenal. Here are all of the family names to the left-hand side, the dominant family names in the last 100 years. In doing the research for the family book, I ran into all of these and strays of other names, rabbit holes that I went down and couldn't get out the other end because I couldn't find the ties. George Willie Henry McIntosh, my great-great-grandfather, your great-grandfather, was a McIntosh. And while we knew that we were related to the McIntoshes, I never understood how. But 23andMe shows all of the McIntoshes that you are tied through DNA, along with the Hamptons and the Neelys and all of the other names. The Gullys and the Hull family I found in my research, and I couldn't make the tie, but here they are. So I just think this is an amazing science. It shows all of your family. Now, I still don't know exactly what the tie is, and it would require a lot of painstaking research to go back and find out how, but here they are, listed in your DNA references in 23andMe. So they are family. Exactly how, who knows? I don't know. It might be worth another couple years of research to figure out. Anyway, 23andMe, this is 23andMe's tie or representation of all of your relatives and the names that are tied to you through DNA that are in their database. Again, phenomenal. Make sure you ask me later on about your fourth great grandfather here, Gardner. That's another name I came across and could not quite place, along with this one, Brazel Overstreet. I know we're tied to the Overstreets, that's in the book, but I couldn't get as far back as Brazel, which is a great grandfather around 1910. The Overstreets, you know, were on Molly Crawford's side of the family, but they were also on Ollie McIntosh's side of the family. Again, amazing. Compiling the family book, you told me about a story that I think I put in the family book about my grand aunt Effie Price and your aunt Effie Price, who was one of Mary's sisters who passed for white. She moved away from Mississippi and lived her life elsewhere. No harm, no foul. During that time, race relations in the South were fierce, and who wouldn't want a better life if they could have it? But you recounted a story to me about going to visit her, and Mary, in her wisdom, told you not to. She said, well, she probably won't let you in, but because you have stubborn Irish DNA, you went anyway. And I remember you telling me that you knocked and you rang and knocked and rang, and she did not respond. But you could see curtains moving, so you were sure someone was there. Well, here are the Price family. I couldn't find her because when daughters marry and change their names, it's difficult. But here they all are, the Prices. You can run, but you can't hide. Now, this is the 23andMe relatives map. I just wanted to show you this alongside the Ancestry.com information that you just saw. 23andMe, like Ancestry.com, has their own membership. So when you see that you have relatives in certain numbers in certain locations, that's just from that's not your entire percentage of relatives. That's the number of relatives in the 23andMe database who have submitted their DNA to 23andMe and submitted their location information as in their membership to 23andMe. So 23andMe for this relative map is basically just pulling the people who are members of 23andMe and have submitted their information. It's interesting, they do this interesting map that you see here that shows, again, where some of your relatives are located and kind of like a makeshift family tree, but that too is just from the 23andMe members. That's not your entire worldwide percentage of relatives. Now, while both charts give you loads of information about various predispositions and health matters and all kinds of fun stuff that you might want to know or you might not want to know, I thought this was interesting. It says, hey, Ernestine, you have more Neanderthal DNA than 2% of our customers. Again, that percentage may change as their customer base changes, but apparently Neanderthals were prehistoric humans who interbred with modern humans before disappearing around 40,000 years ago. I say that makes you of strong, tough stock, as we all are. So bravo. Also, this chart shows that your DNA ties back to one of the original mothers of all of us. They call her mitochondrial Eve. Since DNA is passed down from daughter to daughter to daughter to daughter over the centuries. Mitochondrial Eve. Hey, you show up. Anyway, enough of all of this academic stuff. We're getting ready to have some fun. Now, at this juncture, I'd like to reiterate, I am not an expert on DNA, as you have probably been able to tell. However, the research that I have done and given you here is based on my understanding of the science. Anyone watching this video who is interested in this, I urge you to do your own research, listen to your own experts, listen to a lot of them, because they differ in opinion about different elements of this science. And by and large, however, there is a general consensus about the science of DNA and how it works, and most people are on the same page. Before we get into the next part of this presentation, as we close out this academic section, I just want to say that I hope you've enjoyed this so far, and now we're getting ready to travel.